ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا من يهد له فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد انه لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه صلى الله عليه وعلى اهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى صحابته الكرام ومن تبعهم باحسان الى يوم الدين. اوصيكم واوصي نفسي بتقوى الله في السر والعلى. اعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا ايها الذين امنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن الا وانتم مسلمون. اما بعد. Amongst human beings, one of the most effective means of conveying information has been storytelling. We see this everywhere: books, novels, movies, you name it. Even atheists nowadays, for example, they'll say, for example, get rid of biblical studies in schools, but let's keep the biblical stories, because they recognize the effectiveness of the stories, right? They were powerful. And so it's interesting that the Quran, the book of Allah, is not a story. It doesn't have a beginning, a middle, or an end. And non-Muslims have commented about this, that why isn't the Quran a linear book? Why isn't it like all these other books? And they answer their own question. The Quran is not like other books, that's the whole point. Allah isn't bound by man-made constructs and definitions. He revealed this book to distinguish people's hearts. It doesn't matter if you're an academic and you can understand advanced novels and Socrates and Shakespeare. If your heart is in the wrong place, you will not understand the Quran. And vice versa. You can be academically proficient. If your heart is in the wrong place, then you will not understand the Quran. And this is the beauty of Allah's book. But there is one exception in the Quran. One surah that does have a beginning, a middle, and an end is the story of a boy. Scholars say he was around 7 years old. He was born into a Muslim family like most of us, but it didn't stop there. Like for many Muslims today, we think that just because we're born Muslim, we feel this sense of entitlement. When, in fact, nowhere in the Quran does Allah say, Inna Allah ma'al muslimin. Allah never says that just because you're a Muslim, I'm going to be with you. What does Allah say instead? Inna Allah ma'a sabirin. People who are patient, people who do work on themselves. Inna Allah ma'a ladina taqaw wa hum muhsinun. Allah is with those who have taqwa and those who have ihsan. So these two ingredients, taqwa and sabr, these are the two ingredients that we're going to see in this story that we're going to look at. We're just going to look at a few highlights and try to take some lessons, inshallah. So this boy that we mentioned, this young boy, he was gifted. And it caused certain members of his family to be jealous of him. Right? Jealousy is a common human problem. We see it everywhere around us. You can have, for example, two co-workers working on the same project, right? They're colleagues, best friends, and then one of them gets a promotion. And then this results in awkwardness and jealousy between them. Even, for example, take ulama. You can have like a scholar in the community, very popular, people love him. Right? Another alim comes, more popular, his halaqas have more people in them. You could have jealousy between the ulama. And so this jealousy is what this young boy was a victim of. Yusuf alayhi salam. He had his 10 older brothers who did not like the love that Yaqub alayhi salam, the father Yusuf, had for him, and so they wanted to get rid of him. They told their father, send Yusuf with us tomorrow, and we will play, he'll have fun, he'll eat, and we'll protect him. And this resulted in some back and forth. Eventually, Yaqub alayhi salam got convinced, and he sent them with him. And you can imagine now Yusuf, a young boy, excited, going out with his brothers, ready to play, right? The scholars say that it didn't take long. As soon as his brothers took him, they got at a certain distance away from the house, his brothers started mocking him, joking about him, beating him. They took his shirt off, they tied him up, and Yusuf alayhi salam is confused, little boy, and he's pleading with each one of his brothers, what do you, all 10 of them individually, what are you doing to me? The brothers had ijma', that they were going to put him in ghaiba. Ghaiba comes from ghaib, it means darkness. They were going to put him in a dark crevice, in a corner, in a well. And so his brothers did that. And so Yusuf alayhi salam is now a young boy separated from his father and his family. Of course, as we know, a caravan came and took him to Egypt and sold him there to the minister of Egypt. And Yusuf became a slave in his house. A few years passed. Yusuf he blossomed into a very handsome young man. And the wife of, the Quran calls this minister Al-Aziz. His wife began to flirt with Yusuf. وراودته التي هو في بيتها عن نفسه. She began flirting with him, and this continued for some time until one day she made a plan. غلقت الأبواب. She locked all the doors. غلقها, it's emphasis. You could say she double locked all the doors. She adorned herself, perfumed herself. وقالت هيت لك. And she said she tried to seduce Yusuf into zina. And now we mentioned in the first, the two ingredients of the story are what? Taqwa and sabr. Yusuf, alayhi salam, a young man in a different country. Nobody to stop him. His parents aren't there. Nobody to tell him no. He's being seduced by a woman who has authority over him. And this is where Yusuf displays what's called taqwa, which can be roughly defined as protecting yourself from Allah by following the commands of Allah. This is a rough definition of taqwa. This is what Yusuf does. He refuses her advances, and her plan fails. The women of the city got news of this, and they began gossiping. They said, the wife of Al-Aziz is infatuated with her slave. Can you believe that? And the wife of Al-Aziz didn't like this, so she made another plan where she brought Yusuf to these women who were stunned at his beauty. And then the wife of Al-Aziz says something. She says, وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. I attempted to seduce him, فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. He refused. He refused. It's very interesting. This shows that people, even people who call to immorality, even they, deep down inside, respect those who don't follow them. Right? When someone, a Muslim says, no, I can't do this, I can't drink, I can't go out here, they respect this. It catches their attention. And this is critical, especially in the times we're living in when morality is deteriorated. Right? If you always remember that sticking to Allah's commands results in honor in the eyes of creation, eventually, in the dunya, and also it results in honor in the akhirah. But then, the wife of Al-Aziz says something, she continues. She says, if he doesn't obey me in haram, I will imprison him and make him from those people who are reduced. And now Yusuf responds with something only a sincere believer would say. Prison is more beloved to me, Allah, than what they are calling me towards. Right? There's this modern phenomenon happening where people want Islam to cater to them. What they like, they follow, and what they don't like, they abandon. Very little willingness to sacrifice to gain the pleasure of Allah. Yusuf, a young adult, in his prime, chose to be unjustly put in jail. He didn't do anything wrong, but he was willing to do that to avoid falling into haram. And so he was thrown into prison. And the tafsir say that subhanAllah, even in jail, he used to go around helping people, visiting the sick, helping whoever needed it. One day, two fellow prisoners came to Yusuf, and they saw his character, and so they wanted him to interpret two dreams that they had. The first prisoner had a dream that he was pressing wine, and Yusuf interpreted this as that he would be freed from prison and go into service of the king of Egypt. The second prisoner had a dream that there was bread on his head and birds were eating from it. And Yusuf interpreted this to mean that you will not survive prison and you will be sentenced to crucifixion. And so the first prisoner who had the dream that he'd be saved, Yusuf tells him, listen, when you're saved, go to the king of Egypt and mention me to him. Mention my case, because I'm in jail unjustly. Tell him about me. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. Shaitan caused this prisoner to forget mentioning Yusuf to the king. فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. And Yusuf stayed in prison for بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. Scholars say it's 7 to 9 years. And this is where the second ingredient comes in. First one was taqwa, and now you have sabr, which people define as patience, but sabr it doesn't have one definition, it's a spectrum of definitions. The highest in the spectrum is sabr jameel, which is having patience without complaining to creation. Not wanting to gain the sympathy of people, not wanting a pat on the back and listen, it's going to be okay. You take, instead, this person who has sabr jameel takes all of his or her problems straight to Allah, and this is the patience that sabr that Yusuf alayhi salam had. So around 7 to 9 years passed, and after these 7 to 9 years, the king of Egypt had his own dream, and he asked his advisors, what do you think about these dreams? It's ajib. And his advisor said, it's just it's meaningless dreams that everyone has, nothing to worry about. But the prisoner who was pressing the wine, the first prisoner we talked about, he heard of this dream. And he said, no, king, let me go get this dream interpreted for you. And so obviously we can see that he goes straight to Yusuf alayhi salam. And now look at the magnanimity and the purity of Yusuf's heart. This is the same person who forgot to mention Yusuf to the king. Yusuf asked for nothing in return. The prisoner gives him the dream, and he immediately gives him the interpretation. He says, you're going to have 7 years of prosperity, 7 years of famine. Not only that, Yusuf he tells the prisoner what to do. He says, go back and tell them to spend these 7 years to store the grain, to prepare for the other 7 years. So in prison, Yusuf alayhi salam is looking out for the well-being of his country. Not a Muslim country. Egypt was not Muslim. Egypt was pagan at this time. Ancient Egypt is, they believed in multiple gods. But this shows us that we as Muslims in the land we live in, this is proof that we should do our best to serve well and generally look out for people around us, Muslim or non-Muslim. Right? And so the king hears of Yusuf's interpretation and he appreciates it. He frees Yusuf, he really likes, this man. And just like that, Yusuf goes from prison. The king makes him the finance minister of Egypt, in charge of the supplies and the food and everything. And so 7 years of prosperity, Yusuf is in charge of managing Egypt's resources. And so just for timeline, it's now been 25 years around since Yusuf was separated from his father and from his family. So the 7 years pass, the famine begins. Probably 7 years into the famine, when people around, and it wasn't just Egypt, it was Palestine, it was like the whole region was under famine. And so when they start feeling its effects, Yusuf's brothers come from Palestine to Egypt. And just a side note, this shows how brilliant Yusuf was in managing Egypt's resources. Not only did Egypt have enough food, other countries are coming from around and getting the food from the Egyptian reserves. And so Yusuf's brothers, of course, they don't recognize him. He recognizes them. And they won't recognize him, of course, because he's wearing the Egyptian garb, he's a minister, he's speaking Egyptian. Some tafsir say he was even talking to his brothers using a translator. So they don't know Yusuf, but Yusuf alayhi salam thought of something. He suspected that just as these brothers mistreated me back then, they're probably mistreating their other brother. Yusuf had another brother, younger one, named Binyamin. And he suspected that he was concerned that they might be mistreating him as well. And so Yusuf said, here, take your food, go back to where you came from, and bring me the youngest brother. Now, we don't have time to go into the full sequence of events, but basically, that's what happened. The brothers brought Binyamin to Yusuf. Binyamin stayed in Egypt with Yusuf, and the other 10 brothers went back to Palestine. And so this story concludes soon, and we've only talked about a couple of highlights in the story of Yusuf, but already we can see what kind of a person he was. And if you go home and read the surah, it's as if the more you read it, the more you analyze it, the more you realize how amazing, this man was, alayhi salam. We ask Allah to make his prophets role models for us and allow us to benefit from their stories. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. I had a friend a while back who was talking to me, and he was telling me that he had just gotten into medical school. And he was saying, listen man, I just got into medical school, and a few years back, people used to make fun of me, they used to put me down, they used to mock me. And now that I'm in medical school, these same people are coming back to me, wanting to get close to me and wanting, to be friends. And this was angering him because he's like, now you're coming to me after making fun of me, now you want favors from me? And why do I say this? Going back to the story, this famine that we were talking about, was toward this end, and it had gotten really severe. And Yusuf's family in Palestine had been afflicted now because of the famine, and they were in a not a good situation. And so they went back to Egypt. And they said, أيها العزيز Yusuf, مسنا وأهلنا الضر. Our family and us have been afflicted, with an affliction. we're not in a good situation. And Yusuf alayhi salam responds, he says, he finally reveals himself after all these years. He tells his brothers, do you remember what you did with Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant? His brothers said, are you, the Quran uses triple emphasis, you're Yusuf, and now this is Yusuf's chance. On his throne, the throne of the minister, looking down at his brothers, remembering what they did to him, having flashbacks, remembering being lowered into the well, remembering what happened at Aziz's house, remembering being in prison. All of this happened because his brothers threw him in the well. And these are all coming back to him. And what does Yusuf alayhi salam, how does he respond? And this is part of the most beautiful part of the story. He says, Qala ana Yusuf. I am Yusuf. Wa hadha akhi, this is my brother Binyamin. Qad manna Allahu alayna. Allah has favored us. The first thing he does is praise Allah, mention him, and attribute everything to him. And then he proceeds to teach his brothers a lesson. إِنَّهُ مَن يَتَّقِ وَيَصْبِرْ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Whoever has those two ingredients, taqwa and sabr, then Allah does not cause the reward of those who do good to be lost. قَالُوا تَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ قَالُوا تَاللَّهِ قَالُوا لَقَدْ أَثَرَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا وَإِن كُنَّا لَخَاطِئِينَ. They said, Allah has favored you above us, He's preferred you, and they admit their mistake. إِن كُنَّا لَخَاطِئِينَ. We have been wrongdoers. قَالَ لَا تَثْرِيبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْيَوْمِ. Yusuf responds, there is no blame on you today. يَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Allah has forgiven you, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy. And then Yusuf turns his attention towards his father. اذهبوا بقميصي هذا فألقوه على وجه أبي. Take the shirt of mine and place it on the face of my father, because Yaqub alayhi salam had gone blind from the grief of missing his son. يأتي بصيرا, he will become seeing. وَأْتُونِي بِأَهْلِكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. And bring me your family all together. And this is probably the most important lesson perhaps that we get from this story. The relationship between unity and ihsan. Unity and ihsan. Yusuf alayhi salam had the option to punish his brothers. He could have done it, and he had every right to do so. But he chose to let go of his personal grievances for the sake of his family's unity. Unity and ihsan. Nowadays, everyone wants unity, and nobody wants to have ihsan. Everyone talks about the Ummah's problems and how the Muslims are so disunited, but nobody wants to start with themselves. Because it's hard to focus, to look at your own self, right? So we forget ourselves because it's hard, and then we go to our families and we say, oh, you're doing this, and this wrong, we criticize them, we got pushed back, we realize that's difficult, so we forget ourselves, we forget our families, and then we want to go change the world. We skip 2 steps and we go automatic to the third, but we have to go back to that first step, which is ihsan. And that's the only way permanent unity can be achieved. Right? And there's probably people here saying, oh, I hope so-and-so is listening. Well, gee, I hope this person needs to change himself or herself. And that right there is the problem. Right? Looking at other people. No, that's to achieve the first and most important step towards unity is reflection on yourself and striving to work towards that maqam, that station that Yusuf alayhi salam reached. Right? And if not, then the disunity will just continue and it's going to grow. All these problems we see nowadays is all because of disunity. Really, take any example. Take Syria, for example. Right? What's happening there right now? Go back, read history 100 years what happened. Syria was under Ottoman control. And this is not politics, these are just facts. Syria was under Ottoman control. What happened? The Ottomans, the British bribed the governor of Mecca back then to rebel. They said, we'll give you land, we'll give you power, we'll give you money, just rebel against the Ottomans, and we'll give all this to you. And that's what he did. The Muslims turned on each other, they fought each other. Syria was lost to the British, and the British gave it to the French. And what did the French do? They came in, and you had the Alawi tribe, who was basically, literally back then they were barbarians living in the mountains who used to raid the villages. The French gave them power, education, and funding so they could neutralize the Sunni majority, and they installed, half of the Nasser. And now you have his son, modern day Pharaoh, doing what he's doing. And this has to be said. What's happening? Why? Because the Muslims turned on each other. Another example, Palestine. Palestine was under Ottoman control. The Jews, Muslims, and Christians were living all peacefully. What happened? The Muslims fought each other. The British took Palestine. In came the Zionist militias. Read about the Hajjana and the Irgun and all these militias, and they started doing horrific things to the Palestinians. Not even less than 100 years ago. Read about the Deir Yassin massacre, when the militias went into a Palestinian village. They waited till the men went out on the fields, and they killed the women, children, the elderly. They stuffed their corpses inside wells, and then they waited until the men came back, and that's what they saw. Why? The Muslims fought each other, right? And we can look back and say, a'udhu billah, astaghfirullah. How can Muslims fight each other? Well, hindsight is 2020. You don't think they had their justifications back then, quote unquote justification? Everyone thinks that they're right. They divided. Every party rejoicing in what they had. Everyone thinks that they have a reason to act. And sometimes, yes, you do need to act, but not at the expense of forgetting the general principle. And what's the general principle? There's a story of a few decades ago that a group of American Muslims went to Morocco. And they stayed there with some of the mountaineers, the Moroccan mountain folk. And in this American group, you had two women who were always butting heads. They're always verbally fighting each other, and they just didn't get along. Until one day, they got into an actual physical fight. And the Amir of this American group said, no, they need to let it out, let them fight. The Moroccan people rushed in, panicking, and they pulled the Muslims apart. And the Moroccan Sheikh came and he told them, listen, never ever let Muslims fight. Never let Muslims fight. This is a general principle, right? Don't fight, sit down, talk. Understand, listen, put aside your ego. This is ihsan, making things beautiful. This is what Yusuf alayhi salam did. And look how his story ended. Look at how Allah ended his story. The family came back to Egypt. He was reunited with his parents. فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَى يُوسُفَ. The parents came into Egypt, and when they entered upon Yusuf alayhi salam, he took his parents to himself, وَقَالَ ادْخُلُوا مِصْرَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ آمِنِينَ. He said, enter Egypt safe and secure. وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا. He raised them on the throne and they bowed to him. And now look at the beautiful words that he uses, the word choice. وَقَالَ يَا أَبَتِي هَذَا تَأْوِيلُ رُؤْيَايَ مِنْ قَبْلُ قَدْ جَعَلَهَا رَبِّي حَقًّا. He's saying, oh Father, this is the vision I had decades ago of the sun and the moon and the stars prostrating to me. And Allah has made it true. وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ. Allah was good to me when He took me out of prison. Why is He mentioning prison? Isn't it more of Allah's favor that Yusuf escaped from the well? What's harder to get out of a well where you're left to die or a prison? A well. But he didn't bring up the well because it would make his brothers look bad, and he and Allah had forgiven his brothers already. So he says as-sijn. And then he says, وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِّنَ الْبَدْوِ مِن بَعْدِ أَن نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ إِخْوَتِي. He says, and Allah brought you from the Bedouin life into the urban life in Egypt after مِن بَعْدِ أَن نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ إِخْوَتِي. After Shaitan caused discord between me and my brothers. He doesn't blame his brothers. He attributes it to Shaitan, right? And this is one of the most beautiful things in the story of Yusuf. Right before we end with the dua that he made. If you look at Surah of Yusuf, there's not a single time when Allah talks about his brothers negatively, or chastises them, or talks about them in a bad manner. And you may ask why. And most of the Mufassir would say this is because Allah had forgiven them. And when Allah forgives someone, then it's as if everything is brand new, and it's a new leaf. Right? This is what we should be focusing on. Our presence with Allah, understanding His forgiveness, istighfar, and this is exactly how the story of Yusuf ends. It ends with the dua that he made. رَبِّ قَدْ آتَيْتَنِي مِنَ الْمُلْكِ وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. Oh Allah, you have given me sovereignty and you have taught me the interpretation of dreams. فَاطِرِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, originator of the heavens and the earth. تَوَفَّنِي مُسْلِمًا وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ. Cause me to die as a Muslim and join me with the righteous. He had family, he had money, he had power, he was one of Egypt's elite. It did not matter to him. The most important thing that he was fixed on was dying as a Muslim.
And this is what we should, so it all comes back to ourselves and working to reach the station, inshallah, of all the Anbiya and the Siddiqeen and Shuhada and all the Salihin, inshallah. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيما عافيت وتولنا فيما توليت وبارك لنا فيما اعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا برحمتك شر ما قضيت اللهم حبب الينا الايمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره الينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا ولم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا زدنا علما رب اغفر لي ولوالدي والمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب ربنا ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا